Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third stop of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. My name is Colleen Kroniken. I am a teacher working for Agriculture in the Classroom Canada, and I'm so excited to be co-hosting these farm tours. Today, we're going to be visiting a worm farm in Newfoundland. Agriculture in the Classroom Canada is so excited to take all of our participants on a cross-Canada road trip to learn more about Canada's incredible agriculture and food story to celebrate the 11th anniversary of Canadian Agriculture Literacy Month. I have a few reminders before we get started, and first things first, I want to know where you're joining from, so please put it in the comments below. You can also write any questions you have throughout the tour in the chat. We will answer a few questions throughout the tour, and we will have a designated question and answer period at the end. So if you have any questions about worms as the tour goes on, make sure you put them in the chat. Also, don't forget that all of our farm tours will be recorded and available on YouTube for future viewing. Okay, let's see where some of you are joining us from today. From Holy Family Elementary, we have a grade 3 class. Welcome. From Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. I think we'll have lots from the East Coast today. Witless Bay, Newfoundland. Hello, bonjour, from Forest Glen and Moncton, New Brunswick. Amazing. It's so awesome to see you all here today. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Now, I'm very excited to introduce you to my co-host today. We are at Agriculture in the Classroom Canada so excited to be doing this tour in partnership with Agriculture in the Classroom Newfoundland. And from this team, I want to introduce you to Chelsea. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Foley, and I'm the Agriculture Coordinator here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And here in Newfoundland, we have a lot of amazing agriculture happening. We have dairy farms, we have berry farms, we have egg farms and chicken farms, all kinds of fun stuff. But some things we don't think about that happens underground is our little wiggly friends, the worms. So today, I am honored to introduce you to our worm farmer, Christa Williams.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all. Glad you're here.
Hi, Christa. So Christa actually took over this business about 14 years ago. She's been in the worm farming business. So it used to be a bait farm, and now it's purely for vermicomposting. She also went to school for composting in the University of Maine, as well as schooling for vermicomposting at the University of North Carolina. So Christa, are you excited to be here today?
Yes, I'm very excited. Thank you for inviting me on your tour. I'm so happy to be here and excited to explain all about vermicomposting.
Awesome. Yeah, we can't wait to see your farm today, Christa. Just before we begin, I want to remind our participants of some of the learning components that go along with the Great Canadian Farm Tour. So we are so excited to provide participants with a free Great Canadian Farm Tour activity book. So each virtual farm tour has a corresponding page in the activity book with lots of fun activities for students to complete. Throughout the tours, there will be 3 commercial video breaks. The first 2 are called brain breaks, and this is where you will find the answers to your brain break questions in the activity book. The last one is called a job spotlight, where we'll learn about some careers in agriculture. The last page of the activity book is the Great Canadian Farm Tour Passport. You'll want to bring your passport along on every tour of the Great Canadian Farm Tour so that you can write down the mystery word that will appear at some part of the tour, and it'll be in the top left corner of the screen. Lastly, we have already received some entries to the Great Canadian Farm Tour contest. To participate, teachers have to take pictures of their students participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour and tag us on Facebook using the hashtag GCFT22contest. All right, it's time to start the tour.
So Christa, the name of this tour is called Vermicomposting. Can you explain what that means to us?
Sure. Vermicomposting is composting with the use of worms. And the type of worm that we use is called a red wiggler. And this worm likes to live in the top 6 to 8 inches of your soil and eat all through your organic matter.
Perfect. And we have a video that we can watch that we filmed earlier to see some more of this.
Hi, welcome to our special worm farm. My name is Christa Williams. This is our business, Trouter Special. And I'm so happy to see you today. We are located in Bay Bulls, Newfoundland. And welcome. Vermicomposting is composting with worms. Red wigglers, of course, are the best worms to compost with. If you come a little closer, I'll show you. What we have in here is what we call a pit run. This is a mixture of matured and immatured red wiggler worms. Everyone asks the very same similar questions, is why red wiggler worms? Well, these type of worms are most important for your soil. They're most beneficial for your soil. What these worms do, they live in the top 4 to 6 inches of your soil. And as they eat through all the organic matter and the food waste that you leave for them, they excrete a beautiful, rich casting. And this casting material is used to enrich your soil, to grow all your fruits and vegetables, and anything that you like.
Now, don't tell me that that's not interesting. We love our worms here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have one of the biggest vermicomposting programs happening across the province and country, actually. I think we're going to look at some more video and watch some worms up close. What do you think?
Let's see it.
The worm itself. Red wiggler worms usually take about 3 weeks to reproduce. And every 3 weeks, then they will lay baby eggs. And the eggs look like a little tiny sack of juice, in my opinion. And these eggs can carry normally 1 to 2 babies, but sometimes up to 7, we've seen. Red wiggler worms then take about 1 year to fully mature, and they have about a 4 to 5 year lifespan. A lot of questions people have asked me through the years is how do worms know where the food is to? Vibration in the soil is a big part of it. They sense with every part of their skin, and they have reproductive systems in both. Every worm has its own reproductive system. So these type of worms, as I said, are the best for composting your food scraps. These type of worms will extract their castings, which I've shown you here.
Okay, and we're going to see some more of the castings soon near the end of the tour. But right now, I just want to give a quick reminder that if anyone has any questions about the worms while we're talking with Christa, our expert worm farmer, make sure you're putting them in the chat. And right now, we're going to jump to our first brain break. So if you have your activity book in front of you, this is where you will find the answer to the first brain break question.
Brain break. Did you know there are many items worms can eat, such as fruits, vegetables, coffee grounds, and newspaper? But there are also things worms should not eat, like citrus fruits, bread, meat, or garlic. Thanks for learning with us.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Now, Christa, can you teach us some more about what the worms eat? We learned about that in the brain break. So can you tell us a bit about that? And then I think we have a second video we can watch.
Sure. Well, when you're producing your bedding, usually what I like to tell any consumer that is interested in buying red wiggler worms for vermicomposting is start off with your kit in many different forms. You can use dryer lint, you can use grass clippings, you can use cardboard, shredded paper. Peat also is something that we use here because it's a good odor blanket. It absorbs any extra leachate liquid that comes from your food scraps. Everything in moderation, of course, and then you can add some of your food scraps, such as your vegetable peels. 5 of the most we'll say important foods that the worms like is any of your green vegetables, pumpkins, squashes, watermelons, any of those kind of peels, and believe it or not, some pasta.
Wow.
They also love banana peels and things like that. One rule of thumb for things that they shouldn't eat is garlic and meats and fats and oils and stuff. So anything that would make you smell as a human when you consume it pretty much makes your worm bin smell.
Oh, that doesn't sound very fun. All right, let's watch this second video and see some more of the worms.
I'd like to show you our processing area. Our red wigglers are busy at work. So this is just a little overview of some of our worms in our system. As you move on over here, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we got started with our worms. Almost 15 years ago, I was approached by a gentleman in the community who did a lot of red wiggler worm growth for bait and such, and myself and my brother took over his business and turned it in a little different direction to do vermicomposting. At that time then we looked for opportunities to grow our vermiculture business, and both myself and my brother went to University of Maine and did composting school, and we also went to the University of North Carolina and did vermicomposting school. So with the knowledge of those things, we came back to incorporate that into our farm and our worm business, and here we are today, about 15 years in, and we have been through many different learning curves with the worms, but we feel that we're very comfortable now with the level of where we're to with this, and we also feel that worms are very exciting and on the rise for many people now. Worms themselves, these red wiggler worms in particular, like I had previously mentioned, they like to live in the top 4 to 6 inches of the soil. When we sell these worms as a kit to any customer, we usually start with 1 pound. And why I suggest 1 pound is because every pound of worms usually eats about a half a pound of material per day. So when you go down to a half a pound, they'll eat a quarter of a pound material. Worms will like their environment to be very moist, but not overly moist. And how you can always check that is you can pick up some of your material in your bin and do a squeeze test. And what I mean by that is you squeeze the material tightly in your hand, and if it reaches to almost a ball without really falling apart and very little liquid seeping, it's the proper consistency of your soil and how the worms would like it. Worms don't like acidic soil either, so worms, to achieve that neutral state, we ask that you could crush up some eggshells. That would also help. Worms themselves enjoy anything that's decomposed, maybe like a slurry mix. How we like to feed our worms, we start with an outdoor process. We do composting. We get a lot of materials from different industry streams here in Newfoundland, such as the fish plants, the fish waste we use. We also use some rotted bananas that we get as well. This is almost like a little dessert for our worms. And then we mix that material outside and we bring it in and incorporate it into their bedding. So the worms eat through that. And on a commercial scale, this is how we feed our worms. But you at home would take your worms and start with your composting by using your scraps, all your food scraps. Anything that you can cut down to a very small size, producing more particle surface area, is the best. It allows the worms to eat through the food very fast. Another important thing when you start a bin at home, a lot of people don't start with soil mix, and there's many different things you can use for bedding. For us here on our farm, we like to use peat because peat is a readily available source for us here. Peat is also a really good material for liquid absorption. Any liquids that come from your food waste, which are very fast to go to water solubles, that material then can be absorbed into your peat up to 5 times its weight. So this is an important reason why we use peat. Peat is also a very good odor blanket. It helps with cutting down on the smells and such. A lot of people worry about rodent issues, smells, fruit flies and things like that. We have a very big open system, as you can see here. And what we find helpful, again, is the peat. We bury food if we start to feed them some of their desserts. But mostly our food is contained within the bedding itself, and they eat through that mixture.
Wow, that's all so interesting, Christa. We do have a question here from the chat. Miss Maury's grade 2-3 class, and Nate also asked this question. They would love to know, how many worms do you have at your farm?
Wow, that's a question that I really don't know the answer to be quite honest, because we, like I said and mentioned in our chat, that the worms reproduce every 3 weeks. So I would say we're upwards of probably over 1 million worms for sure.
Wow, that's a lot of worms to feed.
Oh, this is a good question. So Mason is wondering how you make the soil moist.
Okay, well, we make the soil moist by watering our beds. So we add moisture levels to our worms, usually once a week, just to keep that top few inches nice and moist and make them happy.
Awesome.
You at home, I should mention you at home, and how you would achieve that moisture level is by your food scraps, because most of your food scraps and mostly all your food scraps will go to water, and that will add the moisture level you need in your own bin at home.
Very cool. And yeah, we actually have someone commented here. Hello from St. Matthew's School, St. John's, and they have a vermicomposter in their classroom.
Yeah, way to go.
Awesome. Okay, now it's time for our second brain break.
Brain break. Did you know worms breathe through their skin, so they do not need to come to the surface to breathe? Thanks for learning with us.
All right, and we're back. Oh, what's that? Is that today's mystery word? Make sure you write down interesting in your passport beside the map of Newfoundland and Labrador. And also add it to your mystery sentence at the bottom of the passport.
So now that we know more about worms, Christa, can you show us what your business sells?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, first of all, I would just like to show a few pictures of some stuff. This is an actual bin of worms that we have here. Our worms are readily available through year round. We do sell these worms all across Canada. We can ship them in the mail by Canada Post. We send them across the island on the DRL bus, and we ship them across Canada by WestJet. Funny enough, but our worms can go all across Canada. All you have to do is give us a call, like us on Facebook, such. Some other things that we sell here, we sell these, of course, by the pound. These are the European red wiggler worms, as we had mentioned in our talk. They're the nice busy worms that eat all your kitchen scraps and turn your food and your scraps into a beautiful, rich, moist, nutrient soil. This is one of the main products that comes from our worms. I don't know if you guys can see that a little bit better, but this is kind of like a granular material. This is what we call worm poop. The actual proper name is called worm castings. And these castings are excreted through the worms every day. Worms eat up to half their body weight each day. And they excrete these castings in the soil. And so then you have this lovely mix, which is added with micronutrients and added to your soil or your existing beds that you may have for any soil amendments that you look for. A couple of other things that we sell. I'll just show you guys a little picture here that we have. This bin right here, this one here is primarily how we sell our kits. It's an open bin system. It would come with a pound of worms, 15-liter bag of bedding, and your actual Rubbermaid bin. We've always found this system quite successful. An open bin system works for many people. I know as well some teachers and people across the island and anywhere have used these upscale worm factories. These work very well and efficient as well. And you would start by feeding your trays and watering your system to keep the moisture levels in. Another thing that we produce here on secondary processing level would be our soil mixes. Many years ago, when I started this business, we were doing some organic farming, and we were wondering what our castings would do for us. And we put them in our greenhouse and put as little as half a cup of castings on every tomato plant. And we actually saw growth of like 2 to 3 inches over a couple of days. So significant growth, which brought us to a lot of research and development, which brought us to some secondary processing, which is very important in diversity in our farming industry today. So this is one of the products that we produce here on farm. We've called it our Rip and Tip. So you rip it, tip it. It's a premium nutrient soil mix. It's made with vermiculture products. And you'll find it very useful, and it's everyday general use for potting plants right down to growing. We do sell this in this size bag for $8, or we go up to a 1,000-liter tote for $350. So any kind of information you're looking for, you can always contact me about that. And we also sell our pure castings in the pure state, which I just previously showed you in the granular. And some people like to buy this in pure state. So usually about 1 to 4 ratio, for mixing with this castings, or you can take this and plant it, put it directly in the holes where you're planting to add your nutrient amendment.
That's amazing. It's pretty cool how worms eat food scraps and then they produce things that we can use to grow more food. It's like a whole little cycle there. It's pretty interesting.
It's a whole cycle, definitely.
Yeah. All right. We do have a couple questions, well, lots of good questions coming in now. I think we have time for a few. Here's a good one. Why do worms like banana peels? From Addison.
Good question. Worms like banana peels, I think, because they offer a little sweetness. We've put a lot of other different peels in there and tried some different experiments over the years, but we find that the worms really love bananas, almost like a little dessert.
Very cool. Okay.
And do you have any different kinds of worms?
No, unfortunately, we only concentrate our efforts on one type of worm, which is the European red wiggler, and this is the one most successful for vermicomposting. This type of worm stays in the top inches of your soil. As we have learned over our years through vermiculture, is that there are well over 6,000 to 8,000 species of worms, and they all do many different things with the soil. But this type of worm is where we've concentrated our efforts because we know it adds a lot of nutrient.
Perfect. Okay, it's now time for our job spotlight powered by Think Ag. So there are many jobs in the agriculture industry, and now it's time we learn about another one.
Job Spotlight, powered by Think Ag.
Nursery and greenhouse workers help to grow the food we eat. What do nursery and greenhouse workers do? I plant, maintain, and harvest plants throughout the growing season. I check and adjust the temperature and water systems in greenhouses. I know the water and fertilizer needs of plants and make sure those needs are met.
Okay, so now we've come to the fun part, and we get to ask Christa lots of questions about worm farming. I have a question here from Forrest Glen. How long can worms live for?
Sure. Worms can live, they usually have a lifespan of about 1 to 5 years. It usually takes a red wiggler worm about 1 full year to grow to maturity level, and then usually about a 4 to 5 year lifespan.
All right.
Oh, this is a good question. We ask this all the time in classrooms. How do worms see?
Very interesting. Worms don't have eyes. Worms feel, and I guess see, you could say, through their skin. That's how they absorb. That's how they find their food. That's how they breed. So if you would, you could think about worms with eyes all over their skin.
Very cool. All right, our next question. Lene would like to know, what color are the worms when they are born?
Worms are usually a darkish color, what we found in our research here. They start off in a very small sac. Like I said, it's almost like a little sack of juice. It's very small, maybe a little bit bigger than the top of a pen. And then the worms come out. They're very, some turn out a little white at first until oxygen gets into them. And then others are a pinkish, brownish color. And then usually within the first week or so, they'll go right into their natural color state.
Awesome. Ooh, okay. So they want to know at Bay Roberts Primary how long it takes for worms to make the castings.
Very good question. It depends on how your compost is going. Usually a good, healthy compost with worms should not have any pest issues and should not have any foul odors. So if you're finding you're having a good, healthy compost system, usually it will take worms in a bin I tell customers about 14 to 16 weeks, and you should have a significant amount of castings. Some research I've also found maybe 6 months, but it really depends on how fast you're feeding your compost, how well it's doing. And as you sift through your soil, you'll get used to looking at that material. And as it starts to change into the castings and that darker, nutritious look, you'll get an idea for maybe the feeling of it. And then as worms excrete their castings, they find those a little acidic. So they kind of push those down and stay in the top layers of the soil as they eat through the organic matter. So you'll start to notice your bin then getting kind of spent out, if you would. And then you would exchange your bedding. But rule of thumb, usually about 14, 16 weeks, thereabouts.
All right. We have a question here from Blake, and he would like to know why you started a worm farm.
Well, we are sod producers. We grow Kentucky bluegrass nursery sod. We've been doing that for over 33 years. We started vermiculture and another part of farming to diversify our farm, to make us more sustainable here in our province, in our industry for agriculture. So therefore, we looked for other ways to make our farm successful and offer more things to the public and educate them on nutrition of soil and different soil zones and levels and what we can do with that for growth. So that's pretty much why we got involved, is to make something good happen with the soil and with the worms.
All right. We have a couple questions here about what happens to the worms in the winter. That's what Annie is wondering. And Lacey here is wondering how warm should the room be kept?
Okay, good questions. Well, the rooms usually, so first off with your first question, I guess, worms in winter really don't survive in the deep cold. Vermicomposting worms will go to the warmest parts of the pile, but most of them will go off or die off in the extreme cold. But I do tell people that like to have their vermicompost bins outside in the summer, which makes great sense, to try and capture your worms and bring them inside. Worms can live like in a 5-degree, 10-degree Celsius, but they do prefer like a room temperature. And they do prefer like a warmer soil mix so that they can successfully produce.
Okay, so you just change the temperature of your room. Like in the winter, you'd make it warmer so that the worms stay nice and warm.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's see. We have lots of awesome questions here.
Oh, this one's an interesting one because I was trying to find an egg earlier, but I couldn't find one. But what color are the eggs?
Some eggs are like a brownish, greenish color for the most part. Some are brown, but some are like a greenish brown.
Awesome. That's why I couldn't find one earlier.
They blend in.
They're not white.
Yeah. So Catherine would like to know if the dead worms are left in the soil to be composted.
Yes, any worms that die off then do degrade into the soil and go back into the mix, as you would say.
Perfect.
Griffin is wondering, how do they eat newspaper?
Good question. Well, like any worm, how it happens is worms do have mouths, surprisingly enough, but they have tiny sensory cells inside their mouths, and as they dig through the soil, these tiny sensories tell them where the nutritious food is too, and then their suction on the inside of their mouth is what sucks the food back into their digestive tract. So any food, any organic matter, such as newspaper or anything that you add into the soil, this is how they would find it and eat it.
Perfect. Okay, we have a question here. They want to know how many workers are on your farm?
Well, in the wintertime, we are a little bit slower. We only have a couple of staff here with myself, maybe 2 or 3. In summertime, between all things that we have going here, we have about 15 people.
Perfect.
They are wondering, they have a compost started at their school. Can we add these worms to our existing compost?
Yes, you can, as long as they are a European red wiggler or red wiggler vermicomposting worm, then you can add other vermicomposting worms to your pile. We have found that by adding earthworms or other types of species of worms, sometimes they are successful, but they're not the type of worm you're looking for. Excuse me. They are, they have to be a vermicomposting worm to achieve what you're looking for.
Okay, that makes sense. We have a good question here from Liam. Where did you originally get your red wigglers from?
My apologies.
That's okay.
Originally, I got my red wigglers from the gentleman that started the business many years ago. He started a herd of red wiggler worms for bait mainly. And he did some vermicomposting, but bait was his main part of his business. When we took the business over, we turned the tides and went from the bait to the research and development to the vermicomposting side of things. And as we quickly found out, our worms populate fairly fast, so our population just kept going from that time.
Perfect. This next question is asking how long can the worms grow? And we have lots of people asking this question.
How long can worms grow?
Yeah.
In length, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a matured red wiggler is about 2 to 3 inches in length. So not huge. What we have learned, some worm species grow up to, God, hundreds of feet long. But our red wiggler worms are not like that. They do grow about 2 to 3 inches in length for full maturity. And then they eat about half their body weight each day.
Wow, lots of food. Okay, this is going to be our last question for today.
Okay, so how do we find you on Facebook to order vermicomposting equipment?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking. I am getting much better on my social media platforms. I am trying. So I will be updating my Facebook page, but I do have one available. It's Trouter Special. And I also have a website, trouterspecial.ca. Check us out, and you can email me or give me a call at any time. I'm happy to answer any questions or send any products all through Canada that we may have.
Perfect. Okay, sorry everyone, we didn't get to everyone's questions. I see so many amazing ones coming in here, but hopefully throughout the whole tour, you learned lots about worms.
And if you have any questions, you can email Agriculture in the Classroom, Newfoundland and Labrador, and we will definitely get those answers for you, anyone we missed. I want to thank Christa Williams for helping us today and teaching us about worms. We love our worms here, and we love visiting the farm and helping find some worms in the soil. And thank you for showing us your farm. We had so much fun today, and you can check out our website, and we'll link you to Christa, because we have lots of different information about vermicomposting on our website as well.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Thank you so much, Colleen. I really enjoyed my time.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you to the students and the teachers, everyone that's involved in listening to us today. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And I want to thank you, Chelsea. Thanks for being my co-host and showing us around an awesome worm farm in Newfoundland.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
All right, everyone. Thank you to our participants for joining our third stop of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. Our next tour is going to be next Tuesday. We're going to head to the west coast of Canada to British Columbia, where we will be visiting an egg farm. We're going to meet a farmer named Scott, so stay tuned for that. As a final reminder, teachers, don't forget to enter our social media contest. All you have to do is upload a photo of your class participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour. We've already received some awesome entries. And just make sure you use the hashtag GCFT22contest. Also, we hope you're using your activity books and your passports and that you got the mystery word for today. It's up on the screen once more right now. And with that, we will see you next week and in beautiful British Columbia. Bye.
I'm going to go feed my worms now, Colleen.
Oh no. See you.